It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
We have so much news, I don't know where to start. In the studio with us, we have Judge Richard Weinberg, we have Congressman Peter King, and a special guest, a good friend. He was with the Trump administration, Mr. Peter Navarro. Welcome.
Hey, this is wonderful. You had a beautiful day here in the Big Apple, and I am in the Red Apple, Johnny. Rita couldn't be more pleased. Remember seeing Rita at the convention, and it all gets done right here on this show.
Absolutely. And there's so much news. Where do you start off, Rita?
Well, first of all, I do want to say it's so great seeing Peter, a former White House manufacturing czar, also new book, the new MAGA deal. And you got the biggest applause there when you were at the RNC because you had just gotten out. You had been in prison. And boy, were you... Unfairly, exactly. When you got out, it was, I'll tell you, it was a thunderous applause. Everybody loved seeing you at the RNC.
Heartwarming and walking out. It was literally 10 hours from the prison door to the stage of the RNC, and I didn't know what to expect, but people were just so wonderful.
Well, you made me cry when you brought out your gal. That was so beautiful.
She's the sweetheart.
And you know China all too well. This is a huge issue. Of course, we got the VP debate, you guys, tomorrow night. And let's see if Vance takes it to Tim Walz over China, something you know very well, Peter.
It's very interesting if you compare the two, because people should be afraid. I don't know if you know this, but 15 of the last 46 vice presidents have actually become president. So you gotta, it's not short odds when it comes to Walz or Vance being president at some point. And it should scare anyone who's concerned about communist China as an existential threat. When Walz was a kid, he had pictures of Mao Zedong in his bedroom. Weird. When he was 23 years old, he began what would be over 30 trips to Beijing and the rest. He got married in Kunming, and you can't make this up. You know what his anniversary date is? He chose this. The anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre,
oh my God,
June 4th. He chose
And I understand
that.
He's been back to China 30 times on his anniversary.
Yes.
To celebrate Tiananmen Square.
Which was a horrible reminder.
It was a terrible massacre, and it was the turn. 89 was the turn of China into communism. The U.S. made a mistake in foreign policy and not doing some of the time. But Walz, okay, he's making money hand over fist over there, but the bigger picture is that's what the Chinese communists do. They have this thing called elite capture. They use their money, appointments, whatever, to capture academics, businessmen, politicians like Walz, and then they get big payoffs by these people kind of kowtowing to them. And now this guy, if he gets elected, he'll be a heartbeat away from the Oval Office. And meanwhile, the interesting thing is J.D. Vance, right? Well, Walz is honeymooning and making money hand over fist in communist China. J.D. Walz is home with his mother in a community which is absolutely being hammered by communist Chinese economic aggression. There's people losing their jobs. Factories are shutting down. People are dying of fentanyl and heroin. And nobody knows better at the front lines than J.D. Vance of the damage and carnage communist China does. And meanwhile, Walz, they call it Comrade Tim, when they're not calling him Tampon Tim. Comrade Walz over there is saying, oh, this is a great country. I've never been more impressed with anything. I'll never have a better time.
Understand. Why, and I'm going to ask the same thing from John Solomon later. Why is the intelligence outfit that the 51 guys that signed that it was a false Hunter Biden
yes, and it was Russian disinformation.
They're signing on to endorse Harris.
It's deja vu all over again. I remember when
the intelligence people an oxymoron.
The deep state is deeply committed to everything Donald Trump doesn't stand for. They're the globalists who want the interactions with the rest of the world. They don't think about America first. And so you get these folks, when they're not in government, they're in think tanks paid for on the government and globalist dime. And that's the kind of thing They do. Remember, it wasn't just, it was the two institutions that tried to take Donald Trump down before he even got to the Oval Office with things like the Russia hoax was the FBI, right?
Yeah.
Right? And it was the intelligence community. And I've been in the Oval Office when they've been in there briefing the president on communist China. And it's like, why do not release the real information people want to know? All you're telling me is what we're reading in the New York Times. Meanwhile, you're sitting on this stuff that would really educate the American people and allow action to be taking place. But no, it's crazy stuff.
It is crazy. By the way, I also want to talk about the port strike, because that is looming. There could be this massive port strike all up and down the East Coast. Also Texas, too, as well, is involved in this. And the deadline is 7 hours away at this point. John, you had something really interesting. John was on Fox News today, and you had some bombshell stuff, John, where you talked about why Biden has been asked about it, and Biden is not intervening. It's interesting.
Well, I don't understand. The president of the United States, a Democrat, and the election is only 35 days away, Peter. And normally you would intervene the Taft-Hartley Act and put it away till after the election. But my opinion is that there was a coup in the United States of America. I think Joe Biden and his wife Jill realized they've been couped, and nobody talks about the coup. And Nancy Pelosi and President Obama and maybe some other leaders said to President Biden, "We're not going to support you. You're going to get out in disgrace, and you have to say you're not going to run."
There's a lot of things going on in this strike. A lot of people think it might be about wages, which it certainly is.
It's always about wages, but
there's a bigger issue here. This is about automation and artificial intelligence and timing.
Timing.
Look, if you're sitting there in the White House, whenever these kinds of things happen near elections, you've got to weigh this. It's like if you do Taft-Hartley, you may alienate the labor unions. If you don't, then you get all of these economic crises. I think, look, John, there'll be a little bit of pain, and then Biden will throw the lifeline, make her squirm. I think you're absolutely right in your read that he hates her. And his wife hates Kamala Harris even more because Kamala Harris stuck the knife in both of them. I get that. But this strike has the potential, much greater potential than even the auto worker strike, of reigniting inflation at a time when Jerome Powell, with his interest rate cut, just put kerosene on the inflationary fire. So we're playing with very dangerous situation here.
Yeah, really scary stuff. And by the way, I understand, John, we've got John Solomon now calling in.
Well, let's take John.